Good morning, Church Raquel. Vanessa and I were not able to be with you live last week, but caught up later with the service on YouTube. Somehow it doesn't have the same resonance for me anyway as watching it live on, for us, a Sunday afternoon. It was, of course, still inspirational as always. But one thing stood out for me in particular, which Pastor Mark exemplified, I think unintentionally, but perfectly. Perhaps, like me, you have a special time in the day that you set aside as prayer time to talk and listen to God. But what Pastor Mark showed was how you can pray to God whilst carrying on with daily life, multitasking if you like. Watching, as we were on YouTube, at the end of the sermon, Pastor Mark filled the screen as he delivered his closing prayer for the sermon. And it was obviously coming straight from his heart, as he had no notes, and we could clearly see him plugging in his ukulele and tuning it at the same time. We shouldn't just talk to God in private, quiet times. Let's follow Pastor Mark's example. Let's remember we can talk to God at any time, just as you would your neighbour whilst gardening or a work colleague in the office. Last week the sermon finished on Romans 8 verse 22, so today I would like to read from verse 23 to verse 28. It's not just creation alone which groans. We who have the spirit of the first of God's gifts also groan within ourselves as we wait for God to make us his children and set our whole being free. For it was by hope that we were saved. But if we see what we hope for, then it is not really hope. For which of us hopes for something we see? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. In the same way, the Spirit also comes to help us, weak as we are. For we do not know how we ought to pray. The Spirit himself pleads with God for us in groans that words cannot express. And God, who sees into our hearts, knows what the thought of the Spirit is, because the Spirit pleads with God on behalf of his people and in accordance with his will. We know that in all things God works for good for those who love him, those whom he has called according to his purpose. Thanks be to God for his holy word.